Welcome to this session on marketing mix. Today we are going to discuss one of the most widely discussed concepts in marketing, and this forms one of the foundations of marketing theory as we know it today. Now let's today, before we begin, look at the learning outcomes of the session, and I would like you to test yourself on whether you've been able to achieve these outcomes. So once you've gone through this particular session, you should be able to explain the concept of the marketing mix. You should be able to list out what are the different components of the marketing mix. You should be able to discuss these elements that make up the components of each one of the marketing mix. So when we are looking at 3 or 4 components, within that component, what are the different elements? You should be able to discuss them. And you should also look at what are the major decisions that are involved in respect of each of these elements. You should also be able to describe how the marketing mix gets adapted to the new digital marketing environment, because we are now living in a fairly different world, and as the digital marketing environment takes precedence or becomes more prominent, you would need to adapt your marketing mix to suit the digital marketing environment. Okay, how do you define marketing mix? What is marketing mix? This concept was for the first time talked about in 1960s by James McCarthy, and it's therefore it's a very, you might say it's a very dated concept, but it was a way of defining and putting together all the elements that companies offer as a bundle to their customers, and that was the way. And over a period of time, it's been changed a little, it's been adapted, but it's defined as a set of actions or tactics that a company uses to promote its brand or product in the market. So when you want to take a product to the market, when you want to create value for your customers and offer that value, you create a bundle of various components to take a complete package to the market. So it is also, therefore, in other words, we can say that it's used to define the bundle of value that a company places on offer. Now, what is the total value that you're offering to the consumers in terms of the product, the price, the promotion, and so on? So all of that put together is known as the marketing mix. Traditionally, when McCarthy first defined the concept of the marketing concept, he defined traditionally, when McCarthy first defined the concept of marketing mix, he included 4 P elements in that. These marketing elements, which was part of the traditional marketing mix, are price, product, promotion, and place. We will be defining each of these as we go along. However, more contemporarily, the marketing mix has been expanded to include several other P's like packaging, positioning, people, and so on. So depending upon what context we are talking about, if you're talking in the context of services, we actually talk about 7 P's, but as we go along, we'll talk about some of these. Now, if you look at the marketing mix, this is the controllable part of the marketing action. There is a lot of action that is happening in the marketing environment that is not controllable by the company. When the company is sitting down to plan its marketing effort, there are variables like the competitive environment, the legal and the regulatory environment, and so on. Even the demographics of the consumers, the buying aspirations of the customers are something that the company cannot control. What the company can, however, control is the elements that it is putting together as a composite value. So those elements are, as we said, collectively known as the marketing mix, and this is the controllable part. So you can actually decide in what form, under what circumstances, in what packaging do you want to offer this value to your customers. Let's now look at each of these components. And if we look at the first component, the product, what is a product? How do we define a product? I mean, everything that has got a finite form that you exchange for value when you buy is in a generic term known as a product. In marketing terms, however, we say a product is the solution for a real or an imagined need that a marketer has chosen to satisfy. There are so many customer needs that your consumers have. You cannot, even if you had unlimited resources, cannot satisfy all these needs. So what you do is, based on your own understanding of the market potential, based on your own understanding of the demand features and so on, and your own special competencies, you choose a certain segment of need that you want, that you think you should be able to satisfy. Now, the solution that is offered by a marketer to satisfy that need is called a product. So products are actually solutions created by marketers to satisfy a real or an imagined need. A product, in other words, is also a value proposition that defines how you offer your value or your solution for a given need to a given set of customers. So all of these just underline the fact that products are actually defined solution that a marketer offers to a particular need. As the complexion of the need changes, as the aspirations of the customer regarding that particular need change, the marketer will have to constantly adapt his product. Now, if we have defined a product as a solution to a given customer need, what is a new product? Is it a solution to a new need? Needs have pre-existed marketers, and needs have been around for a very long time. So a new product is defined as a product that is a solution to a hitherto unsatisfied need, or is a solution to satisfying a need in a better, more efficient, more economical, or in an improved way. So a new product is a better solution, is a solution to a hitherto unsatisfied or a partly satisfied or a inefficiently satisfied need. That is how we define a new product. Now, as a marketer, you would find that when you want to take decisions regarding your marketing effort, selecting what products you want to produce is one of the most critical decisions of a firm. People say firms are today identifying by the products they produce, and therefore it's a very, very critical decision that you have to take. And how do we begin to take that decision? We need to look at the customer need. That is the starting point of all your product related decisions. You need to be very clear what is it that the consumer needs, what are his expectations in terms of solution of that need, and you use that information to come back to your workplace as the firm or a manufacturing unit, and then conceptualize the idea of a product which would be an ideal solution to the need that you have chosen. There would hardly be any company which would produce a single product. So normally when you take product decisions, you also over a period of time have a product line. So your product mix, like we are talking about the marketing mix, within product also we talk about the product mix. The product mix is the entire assortment of all product that a company chooses to produce. So there are variables there that define the product mix. How wide, what is the total number of different product lines that you carry? What is the length of each product line? Within each product line, how many different variants do you offer? That is called the depth of the product line. How closely related are your product lines is called the consistency of the product line. So these are some of the variables that define what kind of product mix you have. It is also possible for you over a period of time, and looking at the kind of customer needs you satisfy and the kind of customer segment you have, to actually stretch that product line downwards or upwards or both ways. Go down and start creating the components that are used in your product and start making those also, stretch it upwards and so on. So you can have backward integration and forward integration and have your product line stretch more. Sometimes you create new products to fill up an existing product line. I'm saying all of this because this is an example of how does the product mix get developed over a period of time. Sometimes you may find that for a certain product that you have been producing, you develop a far better, a far more advanced technology, and therefore when you introduce that new product, it eats up the old product because the old product has become redundant. That is called product cannibalization. Examples are simple cameras to digital cameras. Therefore, the same company going into a more improved version of the same product, thereby ensuring that the old product would no longer be bought. A difficult decision that you take within the product mix is eliminating a product which is no longer satisfying your customers or has ceased to be a value that people want. You have to take the painful decision of eliminating that product. Sometimes marketers postpone that decision for a long time to their own cost, but this is a decision that is taken. And again, as we go into pricing, you would see another decision that is with respect to products is how do you price your products in a given line. But maybe a better way of looking at that is when we are talking about prices. Now, pricing as a mixed component is the next component that we are talking about. It is the only component, if you look at the mixed components, this is the only component that brings in the revenue. Every other component actually utilizes resources to be created and so on. This is the component which brings in the resources as the goods get exchanged for price and the money comes in. Now, for an undifferentiated product, this component, price, becomes a major determinant of choice for the customers. So things like vegetables or food which are not branded or differentiated, people use price as a determinant to decide whether this is the quality they want, or is this too cheap, or is this too expensive for them to buy, and therefore becomes a determinant of choice. It also represents the monetary value at which desired exchanges would take place. You want to keep a certain price which is not too high to keep people away, and again not too low for people to be seeing this as a very low quality product. Therefore, you need to have an assessment of what is the monetary value of which for me desired exchanges will take place. So that figure is represented by the price. Now, from the consumer perspective, if we are talking from the marketer's side, these are the points that I've just discussed. From the point of view of the consumer, the price is the sacrifice that he will have to make to acquire the goods and services. So if he wants those goods, what is the monetary sacrifice that he will have to make, or what is it that he will have to pay in order to get the goods or services in his ownership? If you again assess all the components of the marketing mix, you would find that this is perhaps the most adjustable compared to the other components. In other components, you have to actually sometimes take third-party variables into consideration and so on. You will find that when you are looking at the other mix elements, this may be the most adjustable component. Now, what are the major decisions while you are setting prices? We will be doing a session on setting pricing objectives. So that is one of the major decisions. What do I want my price to do for me? So that is pricing objective. What is the kind of demand that would become operative at different levels? So what is the nature of demand? What is the nature of my own costs? I mean, at what cost will I be able to put this value on the table? What are the different kinds of costs? What is their interplay, and so on? Then you are not the only player that is producing that product or that is creating that value. So you need to see what are the other choices your customers already have. Therefore, understanding competition and what are the relative offers made by your own competitors for your own price. The next decision, which is an important decision, is how do we actually do our pricing? So selecting a pricing method and selecting the final price, the sum total, but are there any discounts and so on? So what is the price that the customer ultimately pays? So you need to have a final price settled, and once the price is settled and you've started interacting with your market on the basis of that price, you may find that as things go on, as your competitive reactions start coming in, you may have to initiate a price change. Sometimes a price change is made by your competitors and you may have to respond to these price changes. So these are some of the most important pricing decisions in the marketing mix. Within the digital age, there are some implications that have come in for pricing as an activity. what does happen is that the consumers are now able to see all price comparisons instantly and can have, they can make a point of purchase comparison immediately. They can get reactions of people and so on. Therefore, sellers need to tailor prices to different segments, and this kind of an immediacy of pricing information to the customer and at the click of a mouse is creating a fast response time for the marketers. Now, what is the next P, which is promotion? This particular P deals with creating awareness and interest among your customers to buy your product. It represents the process by which organizations when they are contemplating producing a value, how do they inform the market? So all the actions that are taken to inform, persuade, motivate, and remind consumers to buy your products and services comes under the umbrella of promotion. The activity of promotion also performs additional functions like how do you actually use the product? So demonstration of use, self-usage, safe usage, what are the caveats and risks associated with the purchase? You would have seen ads for certain services which says this particular this game that you are going to buy or invest in is addictive and may involve losses, so play at your own risk. So this is the caveat that the marketer tries to show through promotion, and it plays a major role in creating product differentiation and positioning of products. This is just a table to demonstrate to you the various components within the promotion mix or the communication mix. Like we talked about the product mix, we can also talk about the promotion mix, and these are the different components of selling, advertising, publicity, and so on. This is just to share with you, and I'm not really going to go to each component, just for your record and interest that the promotion mix is a combination of various elements that go up to make the communication mix of the organization. The last component that we are going to talk about in marketing mix is the place component. And the question that you have, place component talks about creating time and place utility. Once the goods have been produced, they have to be reached, they have to be taken to each point where consumption would take place. So because the points of production and points of consumption are removed both in geography and time, the goods that are produced have to be taken to the points of consumption. The agencies, this creation of place utility is the major function that channels of distributions perform. And the P element, therefore, this P element, place, therefore talks about how do we ensure that people have the goods when they want them, at places where they want them, and can therefore have sort of assured delivery options of buying it from different outlets. Marketing channels, when we talk about, and this could be done by the company itself, but it would be a very, very costly option. Therefore, the general practice is to have intermediaries like wholesalers, retailers, brokers, and agents. So marketing channels are defined as independent organizations involved in the process of making products and services available for the use by consumers, and they are critical links in the value chain. Earlier, they create time and place utility, and the channel members also bring the benefits of specializations in terms of storage, warehousing, transportation to the value chain that we were talking about. What is the importance of the channel of distribution decision for the marketer? You would realize as you study the component of the channels of distribution is that this is among the most critical decision that the marketers make, because it intimately affects all other decisions. Depending upon the channel choice you make, you may have to look at your pricing implications, your promotion implications, and so on. So it is a critical decision, and it's also critical because your dependencies on third parties is very high. It's a key external resource and takes time to build. So you need to invest time and effort in building those relationships, and is also a long-term corporate commitment that you are making. So you can't have a 6-month kind of an arrangement with a wholesaler or retailer. You tend to get into long-term relationships, and once these relationships are there, they have implications for the way you will be presented to the market. So these are choices that have to be made very, very carefully. This has got a major cost implication, because if you look at the cost of goods sold, you would find that in a country like ours, distribution costs contribute a very large percentage of the cost of goods sold, which is why partly the appeal of digital marketing. So when people can eliminate some of these delays and some of these costs, they sometimes like to take that option. It is also called the dark continent of cost economics, because there are so many hidden costs that are there in the distribution channels. This is also the area where you have a huge impact of technology. Logistics as a function is changing almost completely. Channels are changing completely. The information flows are changing a lot, and therefore people say within 5 years that the function that would become completely transformed would be supply chain and logistics function. Like pricing decisions, we need to also say what are the major channel decisions you have to make, whether you want to have a single node or a multiple node. So how many kind of channel nodes do you want to have? Do you want to have multiple channel options, and do you want to do it yourself? I mean, direct distribution versus indirect distribution. So these are some of the major decisions. Do you have within each channel that you have chosen, for example, you've chosen indirect distribution, wholesalers, retailers, and so on, how many specific numbers to select at each level? So if you want to cover North India, how many wholesalers, how many retailers, and so again. Now, within each channel, when you have members like wholesalers, retailers, agents, brokers, what is the specific marketing role do you want to assign to each? And these need to be formalized, written down, and communicated as formal contracts. Your decisions also involve physical distribution and logistics. What modes of transport would you be using? What kind of warehousing would be done? And so on. So these are, again, long-term implications which need to be evaluated very, very carefully. As you are doing all of this, because these are external members to the organization, you need to have performance criteria set down. So how would you evaluate them, and how would you actually monitor the performance? At the very start of this session, I said as we shift towards digital marketing, there are components of the marketing mix that may need an adaptation. So you would see that the first 4 components are what we talked about already, but then we also need to involve things like process, people, and physical evidence. So all of these are additional components that will be utilized in your promotion mix. These are additional components that will be added to your marketing mix when you go from traditional face-to-face marketing to digital marketing. Again, each of them has a number of variables, which I'm not going to read out. This is information for you to be evaluating and sharing. What are the determinants of the marketing mix? How does the marketing mix get finalized and decided? These are some of the variables that impact the determination of the marketing mix. The first variable is, what is the stage of the market? Is it a new market? It's just been started, people are just beginning to understand the kind of value that is being offered, or this need hasn't really been filled in the way that is sought to be filled now. Take the example of the time when mobile phones were first introduced. People were used to fixed line telephony. They were not used to mobile telephony. So the stage of the market, which is a new market, would have a large number of implications, in the sense the product idea would have to be introduced. People would need to be introduced to the kind of product benefits. A lot of primary demand cultivation will have to be done and so on. So that is the first variable. The second variable is what is the demographics of the consumers that you are targeting for this particular product. What is their capacity to pay? What is their literacy levels? Their literacy level would decide what kind of promotion mix you can use in terms of print media or digital media or audiovisual media and so on. So demographics are a major determinant, in the sense you need to adapt your product, your messaging, your pricing to the demographics of the customers. Customer characteristics. What do the customers want from a certain kind of value offer that you are creating there? What are their buying habits? Do they buy in bulk? Do they buy at a point in time? Do they like to pay in cash? Do they buy on credit? Do they do mostly online buying? So what are the characteristics of your customers? What are their buying preferences? What are how are these preferences changing over time, and so on? The nature of the product, whether it's a perishable product or it's a packaged product which has got a long shelf life, and other variables like whether the product is a luxury product versus a fast moving customer product, and so on, would determine what kind of channels would you choose, what kind of pricing can you put, what kind of promotion would you have to make for that product. You would be studying, or you may have already studied, the concept of the product life cycle, that each product passes through a sort of a different stages in its life, right from introduction to stabilization and growth to accelerated growth to maturity and decline. As we go through different stages of the product life cycle, you would find that when you're introducing a product, you may have to have a different kind of pricing mix and a different kind of promotion mix, versus when the product is at the decline stage or at the maturity stage. And the last variable that I would like to talk about is what is the kind of economic environment within which the marketing activity is being undertaken, whether it's a environment of stagnation or rapid inflation, or is the market sentiment depressed. That would determine what kind of pricing policies, what kind of packaging, what kind of surround of value that you can give to your own product. I would like to end now, except that I would like to finish with a small practice exercise that I want to give to you. You can do it at your own leisure, but this would also help you test whether you've learned the concepts that are present in this session. From the product line that you have been using, just select a newly introduced product, a mature product, and a product at the decline stage. Try to compare what is their marketing mix and try to evaluate how does this marketing mix vary. When you're doing that, try to find out the reason why should it vary. That would give you a sort of a grip of understanding the concepts related to marketing mix determination. Thank you very much.